Hello and welcome to Get a Clue Dad, a Tweens Mysteries podcast. I'm MJ.
And I'm the dad, Aidan from Mysteries Ahoy. And we are back to the world of Wells and Wong. I know that you have never stopped reading them, but we took a break last time to talk about a different series, didn't we?
Yes, and that book was Belly Up. So if you haven't listened to that one, you might want to check it out soon.
Yes, and so going forwards, we're going to be jumping between our series more than we have in the past. This time we're back to Wells and Wong. This is the fourth book, and it's a book called Jolly Foul Play.
So, Dad, may you please read the description?
Daisy Wells and Hazel Wong have returned to Deepdean for a new school term, but nothing is the same. There's a new head girl, Elizabeth Hurst, and a team of prefects. And these bullying big girls are certainly not good eggs. Then, after the fireworks display on bonfire night, Elizabeth is found murdered.
I've heard that voice too many times in the last week.
Many girls at Deepdean had reason to hate Elizabeth, but who might have committed such foul play? Could the murder be linked to the secrets and scandals scribbled on scraps of paper that are suddenly appearing around the school? And with their own friendship falling to pieces, how will Daisy and Hazel solve this mystery? Ooh. So, I wanted to get started by asking you about one of the book's more distinctive features. This book is set on Guy Fawkes Night, which is a celebration that we have in the UK, but that doesn't exist in the United States. Did you have any idea of what Guy Fawkes Night was?
I thought it was about a guy named Fox.
Well, it is in a way. Guido Fawkes, yes. So,
I'm guessing he was a really bad guy or a really good guy.
well, he was a revolutionary in the early 1600s who tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament.
So I'm
And-
guessing a bad guy, right?
Well, the holiday commemorates the capture of Guy Fawkes on the day when he attempted to blow up the Houses of Parliament. So, it's a traditional British holiday. There are things that you might be familiar with, though, that you have in other holidays over here. So, you have a big bonfire. Sometimes Guy Fawkes Night is called Bonfire Night now. People would put a figure on the top of it. But fireworks, sparklers, we also would have things like caramel apples,
Yummy.
all kinds of hot drinks, cocoa as well, and popcorn. Similar to like Halloween, similar to New Year's Eve.
The 4th of July.
Yeah. So you've got all of those kind of elements mixed in, but it's its own unique thing. So the new headmistress of the school, Miss Bernard, wants to kind of make a clean break with the past, because what happened at the school in book one?
If you haven't listened to that podcast, you might want to go see that one. But in that one, we had a couple murders that happened.
Yeah, one of the teachers was killed, wasn't she? And that meant that there had to be a lot of changes in the personnel at the school. Now, you might wonder, this is book 4, it's referencing things that are happening in book 1. Does this spoil book 1?
Not completely.
It tells you about the murder, and you get some sense of the chaos that has happened in the school, but you wouldn't know exactly who did it based on this book. So I think Robin Stevens does a good job of making it so that you can read this book first if you wanted to. So I think you'd get more out of this if you'd read the others, right?
Yeah.
So this is book 4 in a long-running series. And one of the things the author does to keep things fresh is she mixes up the way that each case feels. So in book 1, you've got just Daisy and Hazel investigating on their own.
Yeah.
In book 2, it's outside of the school, and you've got a couple of other characters who are helping out. Book 3, you have a new character called Alexander, who is kind of a sometimes helper, sometimes rival, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with book 4, we're back in the school, and that means that we are once again getting help from some extra members of the Detective Society.
We all know my favorite character is one of these.
Beanie.
Yes. Team Beanie all the way.
So you're a big fan of Beanie, and of course, Kitty had helped out in book 2, right?
Yeah. I like Kitty if she's not bullying Beanie, because we all know I'm Team Beanie.
But this book adds a new member to the mix, Lavinia. What do you think of Lavinia?
I don't like her personality.
So what is so problematic with her personality?
She's kind of negative about everything.
She doesn't have the best attitude about detection, does she?
No.
But she wants to be involved because the others are in on the secret. And so we're seeing this group expand a little bit at a time. One of my favorite things about when this happens is the way that Daisy gets so territorial about her detection group. She makes them take an oath, doesn't she?
Yes.
And what is the promise that they make? What's going to happen to them if they reveal the secret of the detection group?
She'll ruin their lives.
Well, she says that they have to be exposed to pains of medieval tortures, right?
Yeah.
It might be things like thumbnail screws and remember when we went to the Tower of London?
She's gonna chop off their heads?
I don't think chopping off their heads, but everything
I was like,
short of
wait,
that.
what?
Oh, I
'Cause
know.
that's
So we have a change within the group. We have a new member, but there is something else that is a little bit different.
Hazel's becoming her own self.
And how is that manifesting?
Well, we gotta go back to book 3. So as you all know, we got Alexander. He's being annoying. Sometimes funny.
And Alexander fancies himself a junior detective as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He calls himself a junior Pinkerton.
And Hazel's secretly writing to him.
And what's she doing when she's writing to him?
She's using invisible ink.
So that other people who don't know about the Detective Society don't find out. So she's keeping her promise. But why is this going to upset Daisy?
Well, there's multiple ways you can interpret this.
Okay.
She could say that Hazel wants another friend.
So jealousy.
Yeah. Now she has to share Hazel with Alexander.
So you think that she doesn't like the idea that her friend might have kind of split interests and may not be giving all of her attention to Daisy?
Yeah.
Do you think that happens in this book?
Yeah.
I think so too. So we see the story from Hazel's point of view. Hazel feels like Daisy is being unfair when they first fall out because Hazel feels like she was just telling Alexander something that happened. But does she share everything that she knows now with Daisy?
No.
She keeps some stuff back at times. And so there's a sense that some of the detection is happening without Daisy. So did you feel sorry for Daisy at all?
Oh, yeah. I felt like Hazel was kind of excluding her.
I think that's true. I think that she didn't mean to, but I definitely think that that is part of it. Daisy doesn't want any change. She liked it when it was just her and Hazel. She didn't want to expand it to include Beanie and Kitty, but she accepted that.
Yeah.
And then she definitely didn't want to include Lavinia in this book, but Lavinia found out and she had to accept another expansion. Everything is changing, and I think that Daisy isn't keen on that. Did you say there was another interpretation that you had, though?
That she's being unfair and being controlling over Hazel and trying to make Hazel like her minion.
She always refers to Hazel as Watson, right?
Yeah.
And what does she mean when she says that?
You're not as smart as me.
What is
Whenever
Watson's role in the Sherlock Holmes stories?
The assistant.
The assistant. And what does the assistant do?
Write down the cases.
Write down the cases and tell everyone how brilliant Sherlock Holmes is.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a bit of Hazel that feels like Daisy just wants her to say how brilliant she is
Yeah.
and kind of keep notes. When they do fall out, one of the things that Daisy does is she tries to take the notes herself, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She tries to cut Hazel out of the group. So how does it affect this investigation?
It kind of slows it down, but it also speeds it up in a way. She's understanding stuff without Daisy interrupting her, but they just can't figure out stuff fully because they need both ideas to go into each other's heads to figure out a clue.
They complement each other, right?
Yeah.
They have different ways of thinking and they know each other really well. So yeah, there's some big changes in their relationship. How does Alexander get involved? You said that Hazel writes to him. What does Alexander do?
Well, he takes it and he discusses it and he gives feedback back and he usually sends a little riddle. And I love the riddles. Can I say one?
Sure.
Judy's mom has 4 children. The first child's name is March. The second child's name is April. The third child's name is May. What is the fourth child's name? So read the book if you want the answer.
So, yeah, you're right that he writes to her. He doesn't know who any of the people are. But what is he able to do as a result of not knowing who anyone is?
He gives a non-biased review.
He's able to look at the bare facts that Hazel tells him, and he can give her an external perspective.
Yeah. I kept on going back to some of them
Hmm.
and rereading them and thinking, and that's how I figured out who it was.
Well, I think one thing that we need to do, though, is we need to talk about exactly what the crime is.
So, who?
The victim is Elizabeth, the head girl.
Yeah.
Now, Elizabeth is a new student at the school, and because there isn't a head girl anymore, because the old head girl has graduated,
Yeah.
a new one is appointed, and the new head girl is a monster. Why is she so bad?
She knows everyone's secrets and she uses them.
So she's kind of a gossip, and
Mhm.
she's a bit of a bully.
Yeah.
And who helps her in that?
The prefects, including Florence, Lettuce, Una, Enid, and Margaret.
The five, right? They're
The
called?
five.
They're not nice characters, are they?
No.
They're not. So if somebody is not familiar with head girls and prefects, because they're not part of the US school system, are they? What
No,
are they in
sadly.
charge of?
They control all the grades and they watch over everyone. So a head girl would give out punishments, make sure no one's tardy, and tardy is another word for late,
Mm-hmm.
in case you don't know. The prefects are a level below the head girl. They watch over and they're the ones usually handing out the punishments and reporting back to the head girl.
They're not picked by the students, though, are they? It's not like a school president where they're elected by the students. Who picked them?
The person who picks them is the headmistress. She gets a couple people, and then they usually have a big vote between the teachers on who should be head girl. And Elizabeth has done something to eliminate all her other candidates.
So at the beginning of the year, Elizabeth sneakily manages to manipulate things so that she will be selected.
Yeah.
Now, how do Hazel and Daisy feel about Elizabeth? Do they like her?
They hate her.
They hate her.
Why did I sound so cheerful just then?
I don't know. But yes, they hate her. And they don't like the prefects either. They think they're mean and bullying. So we have our victim, Elizabeth. And when does this happen?
Guy Fawkes Night.
So they decide they're going to have a big bonfire up on the sports playing fields. And they get all of the girls and the prefects line them up, don't they?
Yes.
And so everyone is facing the bonfire.
Mr. Jones has cleaned up the whole field and put up his rake nicely.
Yeah, next to the gazebo. So everyone is looking towards the bonfire. All of the teachers are in front of the students. And how do we know that none of the regular students could have done the murder?
They're all in lines.
Right. So
And then
what would happen if somebody tried to leave a line
a teacher or a prefect would see them.
and the people next to them?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone had left the line right before the murder, people would know. So we know that it can't be one of the regular students. And we know it can't be the teachers. Why do we know it can't be the teachers?
Because all the teachers were at the front of the line.
Right. So who are the only people who are not accounted for?
Florence, Gladys, Una, Enid, and Margaret.
So our five prefects, they are the
Yes.
ones who could have done it.
Mhm.
But when they first find the body, does it look like a murder has happened?
No, there's a rake beside her. She's lying down on the ground, face up, looking up with her eyes like kind of closed. And they all realize that she's been murdered when they hear a girl cry out
And what does the headmistress say has happened?
that Mr. Jones has accidentally left out the rake and unfortunately she has passed.
Yeah, so they think that she stood on the rake, a bit like a character in a cartoon, and it's hit her in the head so hard that she's died from the impact. Now, there are reasons that we think that can't happen. One of them is where the rake is in relation to where she is.
Yeah.
But there's another reason that they think that this story doesn't quite make sense. What is something you know about Mr. Jones?
He's very organized.
And everyone believes him when he says that he definitely didn't leave the rake on the field, don't they?
Yeah.
So they think that she has been murdered. Now, this brings up one of the things that is a little distinctive about this book. It's a series first. This is the first time we have a child dying in one of the books. I wanted to ask you how you felt about that.
Well, I guess I kind of took it and I was like, oh, right, this is the first time. And then I kind of forgot that she was a child because the way that they were describing her as head girl kind of made me forget that she was a child.
She feels almost like an adult, right? She's one of the oldest students at the school.
Yeah.
There are some things about her that feel quite old and that make her unsympathetic. What is one of the things that makes her particularly unsympathetic that we learn about in more detail after she's died?
That she has this book with everyone's secrets written inside, waiting for her to blackmail.
So, one of the ways that she keeps power over people is she finds out their secrets using the prefects to help her, and then she compiles them into a book to use against people later,
Yeah.
which is pretty nasty behavior. So,
Well, you just feel bad for the person,
you mean for Elizabeth?
Elizabeth. Yeah, because that meant that one of her closest friends has killed her.
Right. Our suspects are all people who are close to her or appear to be close to her. I guess the question I would put back to you is, do you think that Elizabeth was a good friend to those people?
No, because she kept their secrets too.
Exactly. So we have a case where we have a motive is something to do with the secrets. We have our victim, the who, has been answered. We don't know how exactly because the rake thing doesn't quite seem right, but we do know it's a blow to the head.
Mhm.
And we also know where it happened and when it happened, roughly. Getting down the exact moment at which she died is important, and that's going to be a later part of the book. That brings me to the next thing about this book. We have the murder case, but there is something that happens afterwards that becomes a separate mystery. What happens with her book of secrets after she dies?
Well, we assume that it's either been stolen or one of the prefects has been spreading out these secrets because we start finding secrets all over.
Are all of the things that are in this secret book correct?
No.
No. So they're rumors, they're gossip.
I remember that one is like someone was a thief.
We'll get into some of the specific rumors in our spoiler alert section.
I hope that's soon.
I know your favorite bit of this is the spoiler alert. So we have these rumors being passed around. This is a plot device you find in quite a few Golden Age mysteries. It's what we call a poison pen mystery, where rumors about people are being spread by someone. And finding out who did it and why they're doing it is a big part of it. The mystery here, of course, is that the person who collected the rumors is obviously not the one spreading them out. So we have the possibility that this could be the same person, right? This could be someone who killed Elizabeth and is now spreading the rumors. Or it could be that Elizabeth was killed and this is happening completely separately.
Mhm.
But if that's the case, what does that mean for the person who's spreading the rumors?
That they're either the murderer
Okay.
or they're completely innocent.
Of the murder. But if the murderer had killed Elizabeth because of the rumors, what does that mean for the person who's now spreading them again?
They have someone else they need to get rid of.
So that person may be in danger. And this becomes a big part of the book later on, doesn't it?
Mhm.
A big secondary plot line. Well, my last question for you then, before we get into our spoiler alert.
I did like the book.
You did like the book. So how did it compare to the other ones?
This one's my favorite so far.
Do you know why I knew that?
Why?
Well, firstly, you told me, which was a good clue. But secondly, secondly, one of the things you have commented on that you really enjoyed about each of the previous books was all of the gossip, the tea that was being dropped about the students and the teachers. And this book is nothing but gossip, right?
Yeah.
So there is that aspect of you're learning secrets constantly about the characters.
Basically, this book is Elizabeth's secret book.
It is. And you're going to find out a lot about the different characters. Now, some of those secrets are quite serious.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that's quite neat about this as a series is obviously it's a historical series. It's set in the 1930s, and that context is definitely brought into these books. We have a character from Germany in this book, um,
Yeah.
and we'll talk more about her in the next part. But I think
Spoiler
that
alert.
in the spoiler alert, but it gives you a really strong sense of the place and time and the kinds of secrets that people are talking about, that people are learning. And I also really think you're all about the relationship between Hazel and Daisy. And this book has so much of that. Now, I think that comes a little bit at the expense of the detection because
Yeah.
they're fighting for so much of the book. This is actually quite a simple case once you stop and step back and look at it carefully. But they're so
What do
busy.
you mean it's a simple case?
Well, I think that there is a way that you can solve it that Alexander will point out. That once you think about it that way, the mechanics of working out who could have done it, you kind of strike people out.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily see that because they're caught up in the way that
They're
they're they're
fighting.
fighting. I think the fact that they're not talking properly means they avoid sharing information until right towards the end of the book where they kind of come to an understanding and they talk things out.
Yeah.
So MJ, I think it's time.
Time for the spoiler alert! Dun dun dun! Boom boom wash!
Okay. So,
Maybe you can actually put some fireworks like crackles from like videos and stuff.
oh no, that would be too professional. I enjoy the rustic feel of our podcast. So, I think the place to begin is in talking about the reason that Elizabeth was murdered. We know it was because she was gathering secrets about each of the characters. So, why don't we go through the characters in turn and talk a little bit about who they are and what their secret is? So, our first character is Florence. Tell me about who Florence is.
Florence is very athletic and she's expected to go to Olympics and win gold and bring back all that pride and glory to her town.
So, yes, she's the best sports girl in the school. She's really good at hockey,
Yeah.
but is hockey a sport that she's able to compete in the Olympics?
No.
So she's having to learn how to do hurdling instead. So, what is the secret that Florence is keeping?
She has a secret heart condition.
Right. And why is that important?
They wouldn't let her be in the Olympics.
So, that is a pretty big secret.
Yeah.
Our next one is Lettuce. Lettuce has a secret.
She's going to finishing school.
Right. So, that's what she's telling everyone. Is that what she actually did, though?
No, she's been in a hospital.
So, she had some problems that she needed to deal with. And I think it's important to say this isn't something that people should feel ashamed of, but this is the 1930s. And one of the things that they say is that this is a character who is really focused on the idea that she's going to marry into high society. And she feels that the stigma would prevent her from ever achieving that. So she has a reason to want to keep that hidden. What about Una?
Una has family in Germany, and parents are supposedly high up in the Nazi party.
So this is before World War II,
Mhm.
but this is after Hitler's come to power.
Mhm.
So the Nazi party are on the rise. They gain power. What is her secret?
Her whole family is secretly Jewish.
Right. So if this information got out, it would cause harm to her family, to her parents. So our next person is Enid.
Enid is very smart and is under lots of pressure to get into Oxford, which is a British university. That's like our Ivy League schools. It's basically their Harvard.
Exactly. It's one of the oldest and most revered universities in the world. And
Yeah.
you visited there this summer,
Yeah, I
didn't
did.
you?
And I remember seeing a building that was basically the Great Hall without the floating handles.
Yeah, the Great Hall from Harry Potter, right? We went and visited Christchurch.
Yeah.
So she wants to get into Oxford. What is the problem, though?
She's been cheating because her parents keep on reminding her, we put so much faith in you to get into this school. our other daughter isn't even going to school.
Yeah.
And they've spent so much money on her. Don't mess this up.
So they're investing everything in Enid, but that puts a whole lot of pressure on Enid. Enid doesn't know she can make the grades just by studying. So she's cheating. Our last person is Margaret,
She's secretly in love with Astrid Frith,
who's another one of the students at this all-girls school. And so in this period, the fact that she is with another girl is scandalous in the eyes of many in the school. So, which of the 5 is the one who did the murder?
Enid.
Enid did it. She can't risk that she's going to be exposed and that the chances of her getting into Oxford will be taken away. So she does the crime. Does she use a rake?
No, a hockey stick. And then she burns it.
And she does something that is particularly mean, doesn't she?
Yeah. She blames it on others.
She
So she sets up Florence. She puts the hockey stick in her bag and puts other evidence inside.
So she's making someone else look guilty, but she also, in the process, kind of demonstrates that they're not, right? Because Florence is never going to sign that piece of paper if she's actually doing this.
Yeah.
But there is another way that our characters have found the truth. What was the piece of advice that Alexander gave to Hazel?
Look for the opportunity, not the secrets.
Daisy's original plan is if we can find out the secrets, we will know who had a motive.
But they all did.
But they all did. That's the thing that Alexander, as an outsider, is able to point out to her, that they're wasting their time by focusing on why it was done, because they know that every one of those characters has a motive. But if they look at the timings, if they try and recreate the crime by staging a reconstruction, they will be able to work out who was in a place where they could have done it without being seen. Ultimately, this is about opportunity. I think that some of the clues are left late in the day. I didn't necessarily know who had done it, but it was simply a matter of working out the significance of some things. So do you remember something that Hazel finds early in the book?
A hair clip.
And once she finally shows this to Daisy, what is Daisy able to tell her?
That's lettuces.
And she knows that if this was found in the woods, that means that Lettuce was the character who ran off away from the bonfire before Elizabeth had died. And then when they talked about what they remember seeing, they managed to work out who had already been to fetch firewood at a point when Elizabeth was still alive. And that way they could narrow it down to just a couple of characters. And then you ask who was capable of doing it without being seen. And when you eliminate everyone who couldn't have done it,
You're left with Una and Enid. They think it's Una at first, and then they kind of think a little bit more.
well, there's something else, right?
Binny has been kidnapped.
Binny has been kidnapped. Now, why has Binny been kidnapped?
Because she's the person who's been spreading the secrets.
Right. So she finds the book after Elizabeth has died because it gets dropped on the field, and she starts dropping them all over the school. I guess she's enjoying the chaos that she's causing, right?
Yeah. Una figures it out. She goes and takes Binny because she's worried she's going to be killed by the murderer next.
Because the thing that they have worked out is that whoever killed Elizabeth killed them because of the secrets.
Yeah.
So they know that that character is in danger because they have the murderer's secret.
Yeah.
So once we find out that Una is the one who has kept Binny safe rather than kidnapping her because they want to hurt her, we know that the murderer isn't Una. And so that leaves us with
Enid. Enid comes in and exposes herself.
Right.
And then Beanie does her favorite moment in the book. She charges at Enid and knocks her down to the ground and causes chaos. Go, Beanie!
Go Beanie.
I think she needs a moment of recognition.
Well, you are a Beanie fangirl, aren't you? She is your favorite.
Guys, when are we going to get the Beanie merch? Just tell me when.
Was the murder part of the book your favorite bit, or was it more the
secrets?
The secrets and the character drama between Hazel.
Character. Because I figured it out pretty quickly. As soon as I figured out it wasn't lettuce, I knew who it was.
Okay.
So I just had time to enjoy all the rest of the book.
And how did you feel about Daisy and Hazel's relationship by the end of the book? Do you think they're in a better place than they were at the start?
I think they're a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
They have a little more trust, and Hazel's no longer keeping a secret from her.
So this book ends like the others have in the series with a bit of a tease of the next story. Do you remember anything about?
No,
You
I don't
don't?
remember the
Yeah.
tease.
Well, you did read this a couple of weeks ago, didn't you?
Mhm.
So we know that she is being invited to Cambridge, another university city, because Alexander is going to be going there.
There's going to be much more drama
You think there's going to be much more drama?
because we're also throwing in her brother.
So
And
you-
I'm just like, ugh,
you-
give me that book.
You're looking
Give
forward to
me
that?
it.
Well, I think we are going to look forward to reading that together and talking about it soon. But before we get to that, we have a couple of books that we're going to read and talk about first. So next time we're going to be talking about The Case of the Missing Marquess by Nancy Springer. And you've already read that, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you how you feel about that yet. After that, we're going to go back to the Stuart Gibbs series,
And read Poach.
which you've also already read. So those are going to be our next 2 episodes. And then when we're done with those, we are going to go back to Wells and Wong for that book 5.
Yay.
So before we go, MJ, if people want to support the podcast, what can they do?
Well, they can like and subscribe or follow.
And they can leave ratings and reviews, can't they?
Yes.
On their chosen podcast platform. And we actually do have a review that we can mention, don't we?
Oh, yay.
From Bookish Sarah, and she wrote, 2 of my favorite people talking about books. Very few things could be better. Love how you guys have divided it into sections that talk about the structure of the story and then go into the details of the how and the why of the mystery. So thank you very much for that review on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. Thank you, Bookish Sarah.
Yeah, we are very grateful for the review. And if you want to leave your own review,
You can comment down below. And
okay, well, I think that's it for this episode.
so this has been Get a Clue, Dad, a Tweens Mysteries podcast. I'm MJ,
I'm Aidan.
and we're signing out.
This has been Get a Clue, Dad, a Mysteries Ahoy podcast. In this episode, we discussed Jolly Foul Play, Book 4 in the Wells and Wong series by Robin Stevens.